What?
Go ahead and like those, please. Share them.
Neither one of them has popped up yet.
Welcome to 330 to go. You're okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Told you, the volume's high. I don't even have it in my ear.
Change that dial. We're going to be live in just under 3 minutes.
I wish all the people could have seen you
We've got a
actually
really fun
recording
show in
this.
store for you tonight. What?
When you recorded this, I wish people could have. You're like.
Folks, if you haven't done so, please make sure you enable 330 to go's Morning Minute on your Alexa app flash morning briefings.
I gotta change that.
Provide daily content.
You have to add.
Google Home now too.
Yeah.
To give you
Well, you're
information
explaining it
on
tonight,
what's
and then you
going
can
on
change it.
here and there in the 330. As well
Jillian,
as giving you regular daily
did you do
specials
mine?
for where to shop and where to get discounts at local restaurants. If you haven't done so, make sure you check out our website, 330go.com. You'll find all of our podcasts, archives,
The egg
and all of
carton's
our
in the picture.
webcasts available on both YouTube and on Facebook.
Hear me.
Please make sure you go to our page, 330 to go. Hit that like button, make sure you follow us. We do offer regular specials and regular giveaways. We really love giving stuff away.
What are you laughing at?
You didn't get the egg carton out this
If you
time.
haven't done so, please
The
head
egg
over
carton's
to
in the
our
picture.
review page as well,
Oh,
and let us know that you watch the show. Tell us what
all
we
those
do right
papers.
and different areas where we might be able to improve.
It's a house. He goes, the
If you
little
have an
vacuum's
idea
in
or a
it. Do you want the
topic
little
that you'd
vacuum in
like
the
us to
picture? I'm
cover,
like, I don't care.
please make
It's
sure
a
you get hold of
house.
us.
I don't
We'd be
care.
happy to try and work it into our schedule. If you'd ever like to be in our viewing audience, we do have seating available for just about every show we do. So once again, please make sure you get a hold of us, and we'd be happy for you to be our guest.
Vacuum's in it. Do you want the little vacuum in the picture? I'm like, I don't care. It's a house. I don't care. Why did we hear
Folks,
that?
we're almost there. It's almost time. Make sure that you're adjusted with your volume. Grab a drink, and away we go. Take care, folks, and enjoy the show.
What's that face for?
I don't know. I don't think the iRig's working.
The hoo-ha?
Just don't worry about it. Just keep going. Roll tape.
3, 3, 3, 3, 3,
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Akron's hottest and fastest growing show, 330 to go. I'm your host, Hank Forrester, coming to you live from Stakeout Studios, overlooking the rolling plains of Hardesty Park. In tonight's episode, we discuss work programs in and around the 330 to help folks succeed, finding work and work placement. But before we do that, we're once again joined by the dulcet tones of Danny Marie. What's the matter? No
Breaking news.
No Danny?
Breaking news.
No Danny.
Danny left early on her flight for vacation to miss our lovely, lovely Storm Florence.
Okay. Okay. Well, let's change that then. I guess you're gonna hold on. Let me cue this. Kate, I guess you're gonna have to fill in.
Yay!
Go ahead.
How you doing, Hank?
I'm living the dream.
Just living the dream.
All right, go for it.
Alrighty. Tonight's episode is brought to us one last time by LaBelle's Barber Parlor. LaBelle's is located inside what is now known as the East End, which are the Goodyear Heights historical buildings. Their state-of-the-art facility boasts big screen TVs, a coffee bar, and compressed air at every station. It's like being in a hunting lodge living room. These guys are making moves and recently added to their staff and now have more availability. Call 330-472-0497 and tell them Hank sent you. You can find them on Facebook and online as well, and boy do they make guys look good. In addition, they now carry their own hair care product line and have t-shirts available for purchase as well. Check out their first State of LaBelle's address.
All right, so before we go on, I do have a minor correction. See that little box right down there? Go ahead and plug that in
to
the phone jack port, which makes
Awesome
all the sense
sauce.
as to why they haven't been picking up all the primary audio. Go ahead, plug that in.
Okay, it's gonna.
Just plug it in. There you go. All right, is it stretched?
Yeah.
It's okay, pull on it a little bit. All right, we're good. All right, folks, we've been announcing breaking news all week. I feel like CNN over here, all right? So we've got so much to tell you about, all right? So we've added a new show to the... What?
It's really loud.
I'm sorry. We've added a new show. Is this better? Try this one. Can they hear it? All right. Better? All right. So we've added a new show to 330 to Go and to the network, and it's a YouTube special vlog that's called 27 Squared, okay? So you can find it now on all of our links, so please make sure you go subscribe to the YouTube channel 27 Squared in order to follow updates when new episodes are released. In addition to that, the Alexa program just got a friendly friend. We have now been approved.
How friendly is that friend?
Hold on, I got that one right here. All right, we have now been approved. Okay, we have now been approved as a Google Home command. So in addition to Alexa, we're now going to be available on Google Home, which is great. So that's going to be active as soon as I can figure out how all the buttons work. All right, so I got a tutorial to learn how to do that, but you can still get all your stuff on Alexa. Okay, and then most importantly, let's do the drum roll for this one. Where'd it go? I think it's that one.
We need to put labels on your buttons.
I know. That wasn't quite a drum roll, but we are moving. We are moving. I announced this earlier in the week. Kate finally picks up of the kiddos, and then we end up splitting. All right? So good job to Kate. Applause for her for making sure that she at least got to show kid pictures before we moved. But we're moving, folks. We're moving for a bigger studio, and we're heading over to Acme #1. So what does that mean, okay? Well, we're going to be broadcasting from the bridge and the conference room area inside Acme #1. And what that will allow us to do is we will be able to have a much larger live studio audience. So up to this point, we've had to cram everybody into our living room, but now we're literally going to have multiple chairs available in multiple spaces. So it should be a lot more fun.
You know what else?
What's that?
No flipping furniture.
I don't. We have to. We don't have to flip furniture. All right. So there's that. In addition, we're going to be bringing back our gift card trivia along with daily specials, and we're going to be providing you with Acme secret savings codes. So please make sure that you check that out. This is really our next step in our conquest to attempt world domination, okay? So we're very excited about this news, and we're looking forward to fun and informative programming, okay? Folks, before we go on, please share this right now, especially if you know somebody that's looking for work. Hit that, smash the like button for us. Make the little happy faces go up and down. We would greatly appreciate it. And basically, we need more feedback, so please continue to make sure that you review the shows every time that we're done, all right? So here we are tonight, and now we're going to focus on notifying folks of available resources in and around the 330 to find employment opportunities. And so without further ado, I'd like to introduce our guests. Let's have a nice round of applause for Mr. Rick Cugini. How you doing, Rick? How'd you feel about that Browns game?
To me, a tie is a loss.
A tie is a loss.
I'm a Steelers fan.
You're a what?
I'm a Steelers
You're a what? Oh, I didn't know this. This may void our show contract. Okay. All right. So I would think it'd be my thought process that Steelers fans would be much more upset than Browns fans over that result.
Yeah, like I said, I wanted to turn it off early, but we kept it on in the house. And to me, it's a loss.
All right. Well, at the end of the day, it's a 0-0-1, which means we didn't lose, but I still didn't get to drink the victory beer, Bud Lights, right? So it's not a win. All right. So right now, Rick, what I'd like you to do is go ahead and say hi to go ahead, scoot up a little bit. Say hi to Akron.
Hello, Akron.
Say hi to Canton, okay?
Hello, Canton.
And just go ahead. Whenever you answer questions, like I told you, just take a look at the camera up there.
All right.
All right. So first of all, let's start off with just tell us your background and tell us where you've been in this journey and where you are today.
All right, I've been, about the last 42 years, I've been working with people in either the social services, education, or workforce development field. Started out as a probation parole officer, went on to work for the juvenile prison system, developed the Phoenix Alternative School here in Akron, which is an alternative school ran through the YMCA. For about the last 12 years before I did this, I ran a school for children with autism out in Talmadge, and now I'm developing workforce for our community.
Okay. So when you look at right now, as far as needs in and around this area, what are current needs of the workforce right now?
Oh man, I'm gonna tell you what. I get calls all day long. I got a home office at home, and I'm getting emails and calls up until 10 o'clock at night. Every business in this community needs somebody, whether it be CDLA truck drivers, whether it be apprenticeship people, enrollees, whether it be fast food help, everything. I don't really work with a lot of the McDonald's and Burger Kings and stuff like that, because that's mostly for my 16 to 18-year-old population. But other than that, my 18 to 60-year-olds, I'm getting calls every day, all day for anything on the spectrum, anything.
So moving forward then, where do you see workforce future development needs?
Well, what I'm really focusing on myself is the apprenticeships and the trades. I work with a lot of the unions. I talk to a lot of the union guys, and a lot of the trades in this area. They've been down for the last probably 8 to 10 years. Everybody's been going to college. Everybody comes out of college and they're looking for a job, and they're taking jobs that they should have taken before they went to college. I have a friend of mine in Cleveland who his son went 5 years to OU to be a teacher, and when he came out, he wanted to be a welder. So we re-enrolled him in welding school after about $200,000 and some as an investment. He's also an educator too, but he wants to be a welder. Where I'm really focusing on is the trades. We have the trends are all showing within the next 10 years to where we're going to need building trades, electricians, carpenters, pipe fitters, all the way through the gambit. We're going to need more and more and more of those. Right now, the state of Ohio is 2,000 electricians down from what they need.
Well, and I went to one of the big industrial conferences in Cleveland this past year, and John, is it Rossiter? Who's Cliff Clavin? The guy from Disney, the guy that voices everything.
Oh.
John Ross, is it Rossiter?
No.
John.
I know who you're talking
Cliff
about.
Clavin, the guy who plays Cliff, and he's in every Disney movie. He's the voice of something in Pixar, right? So he's a director and all that, okay, and he's standing up there and he's doing a keynote to the industrial folks, right? And he's like, not only am I just a voice in the Pixar world, but I started my life as a carpenter, and as he's talking about his how he grew up in the trades with his dad, okay? And the statistics he was throwing out there were just staggering. Yeah. It's almost like it's not cool right now to do jobs where you work with your hands. Yeah. We're going through this generational thing, and all the folks are getting older, and they're starting to retire from those jobs, and it's leaving this tremendous void of people that are no longer around that are willing to build anything. Yep. So it's like we're at and everything you just said kind of matched what he said in regards to we're almost hitting a point of critical mass crisis right now. So how do we go about encouraging students to want to participate in those fields?
Well, we have to begin to talk about work again. When I was a kid, I grew up in Ravenna. When I was a kid, which made me a double Steelers fan because I was much more closer to Pittsburgh than I was to Cleveland. We went to Pittsburgh more than we went to Cleveland.
Oh, man. Oh, boy.
But when I grew up, you either worked.
Finish him!
You either worked or you went to school. If I wouldn't have been 6'11" tall, I'd have never went to school. I went to school to play basketball and to get an education. If I would not have, I'd have been either in the steel mills with my dad. He worked in a Rotec in Aurora in a steel mill, or I'd have been a brick mason or something like that. Because all my summers I spent carrying bricks. That was my apprenticeship. I carried bricks for guys, and my pay was I got to eat that night at home. I mean, those are the days when you work to pay for your home, your upbringing.
Well, and you were at the Connexus. Were you at the Connexus event when John did it? So my day job, I work at Halls Innovations, right? And John gave a keynote at the Connexus event, and one of the things that we brought up was the story behind the demise of the rubber industry in Akron.
Yeah.
And it was one of those where, Akron's making tires, they're making them a certain way, and Europe started making tires a different way, and Akron refused to pivot. And what eventually happened was those tires made their way over on import cars when the gas shortages hit, and at that point in the 70s is when most of the industry around Akron started to die. Okay, but until that point, my grandfather, grew up in the generation where you could get out of high school or even stop high school before you could leave high school early and you could go into.
You could quit high school and still make $30,000 a year with overtime.
You could go to a factory job and you could make a comfortable living for your family.
Yeah.
And you could do it until you're retired, and then you could retire and live a normal life on your retirement. I'm afraid to say that I think most of those days are gone at this point. And unfortunately, a lot of that has to do with the fact that the manufacturing wage never increased along with the inflation. Is that correct?
That's correct. I want to go back to something you said about Europe and overseas. Right now in Germany is the leading country in the world for apprenticeships. Their kids either figure out very early whether or not they're going to go to the university, whether they're going to play sports, or whether they're going to go to apprenticeships. 60% of their kids before ninth grade, which is our ninth grade equivalent over here, is settled into some kind of apprenticeship. They've set their tone that I'm going to work. I'm going to be a worker. So they're way ahead of everybody. Then you got Switzerland following behind them. What we've done is we've taken our kids and we've said, hey, you had it pretty easy up until 18 years old. Why don't you do another 4 years on us? And then when you come out, then you can try to find a job or find something. And what we've done is we've left there's a huge skills gap there, what you're talking about. When I talk to these unions, I go and talk to these union guys. Some of these guys are my age, or older, and they're looking toward retirement. But to be able to retire, you have to have people coming in on the front end to pay the retirement to fill up the well. And these guys don't have that, so they're continuing to work. And I mean, you see tradesmen now that are 65, 70, 75 years old, still trying to go to work every day. Those guys should be done. They should be teaching the young people. However, I'm telling you, I'm behind this movement. I'm really pushing it hard, and we're starting to see a change in the trend.
That you just literally defined my dad. So my pop was a journeyman machinist, and he worked at some of the big boys. So he was at Carter Rubber. He was at a lot of the bigger mills and a lot of the bigger machine shops in the Akron-Canton area. Okay, he would constantly go through these periods where they would have a lot of work, and he'd be working like crazy. And then he'd get laid off, and then he'd go to another place, and he'd work a lot, and So it went on like that for 30 years. He ran a vertical drill press and a lathe and all those lathes and up and down lathes and all that stuff, right? So he gets done. He retires at, was it 65? I think he retired technically at 67 or whatever. Well, so now he's getting social, and nobody knows how to run the machines that he knew. So every once in a while, you get a phone call from one of the brass places. What's that one down in Seville? Seville Bronze, right?
Seville Brass,
yeah. And they call him up and they like, so Gus, we got a big job that came in, and we don't have anybody that knows how to run these machines. So he'd go in and he'd work there was hours he could work and still be able to. He was double dipping, right? Hopefully, I'm past the point of legal ramifications here. But he'd be running machines and still collecting, doing in retirement, right? But at the same time, he did that, and then he got to a point where he couldn't do it anymore physically. Like it just wouldn't work anymore, right? Yeah. So then he's like, he grew up in that generation, kind of like you and like me too. You got to be working. You have to do something. You can't just not do anything, right? Yeah. So he became a valet. So it's a perfect old man job, right? He's a valet at Suma Hospitals at Akron City. So he parks cars, he talks to the people, he hangs out, he gets to know the family, yada, yada, yada. Perfect old man job, all right? Well, then he had to have a quad. So the year the Indians went to play the Cubs in the World Series. So it's 2 years ago. Okay. Yeah. So 2 years ago, it was the day that we beat the Blue Jays to go to the World Series. And I know this because I was at the same conference I'm going to next week. I was in Detroit at a conference. So we're literally driving back to get home to be in the room when he wakes up and stuff, right? Me and John. And we had to listen. We couldn't get the Cleveland radio station. So we had to listen to the broadcast through Toronto's words. So we're listening to the Toronto broadcast, and the kid was pitching. Ryan Merritt. Remember Ryan Merritt threw that game.
And they were just losing their mind because here's this kid pitching this almost like perfect game, and they're like, "Who is this kid? Where are they getting it from?" You know. So we made it home, and the point is, I remember that very vividly because when I got there, I said, you know, Dad's like, he's coming out, he's all groggy and everything, and Mom's like, "You're okay, and you made it through, and all that," and we're all here and we love you. And I go, "Dad, the kid pitched great. We're going to the World Series." And whatever it did, all the machines started going, like I almost killed my dad on the day he had his quad, right? Because I told him we're going to the World Series. The point is, though, at that point, finally, Mom said no, doctors said no, everybody said stop working. So that was at 78, right? Yeah. But until that point, he was doing these odds and ends jobs that, I want to use the term kids, but we'll just say folks younger. Yeah. They didn't know how to do manual machine inputs with all those, you know, all the things that you got to do without having a computer. Yep. And it was just incredible. He was constantly working and getting these odds and ends jobs. So, all right. So as we transition, then, where are you then with when a kid goes to? All right, as parents, we're about to face this. We got a 16-year-old, right? Okay. We're already getting mail. Okay. So does kid go to college? Right now, what you just pointed out, and it's a trend that I've seen on LinkedIn like crazy lately. I hate using the term millennials because it's past millennials. So it's this, I think it's Generation Z we're on, or whatever the heck it is now. Whatever this next group is, they have this decision where they need to figure out do they have to go to college?
Okay, I'll tell you what I do. I talk to people every day. Now I have a catchphrase, "Let's go to work," on my Facebook and stuff, and I also have a line that I use. You know, college isn't for everybody, but a good life, everybody deserves a good life. So there's other ways of doing that. There's other options. And before I got into this business, I never heard those other options. You know, I talk to people all the time, and my high school's gauged off of how many people go to college or how many people are successful. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if it's on the report card. The actual report card comes out tomorrow, so you'll get to see that. But what I've started to tell people is that we have to make that transition. We have to begin to talk about work again. I've got a high school out there, and I talk with my hands because a lot of people who like Pittsburgh talk with their hands because we're usually going like this.
Oh, man. Oh, man.
But anyhow.
Oh, boy.
Well, I'm working with a school right now, and we're actually going to look at teaching work. If you remember when you were in maybe junior high or high school, you got to take that 1 hour health class, maybe a bachelor's living class, maybe a shop class or a workshop class.
I think I did.
I did home.
We did a home ec shopping, but I remember taking. I loved it. I had a cooking class. Yeah. I got to learn how to do lasagna first.
I burnt a lot of food that year.
But we were all. I took it because I like to eat. But we were all exposed to that, and the kids aren't exposed to that now. So I've had this one system that I'm working with. We're looking at going 3rd grade to about 6th grade and teaching work through play. Because kids learn through play. So we're going to start to talk about work through play. And we're going to do it in just certain exercises and everything. And then 7th through 8th grade, we have a young man who's a coach that's going to run these classes. He's going to begin to talk about do your job. It's a work program. This is what you're going to have to do. Hopefully by 9th grade, we've got a group of kids, that's 60% who don't figure it out till after the day they graduate, that they're not going to college. So we've got a group of kids who then say, well, hey, maybe college isn't for me. Because, you know, I'm putting stuff up on Facebook and stuff every day. You know, Ohio's 35th in the country for college debt. Right now you have 7,000 people in the state of Ohio who have defaulted on their college debt, which means they're going to either have to file bankruptcy or won't be able to get a house. I see a lot of hands here in the audience. Okay, but you also have a national travesty, which is 1.4 or 1.5 million dollars or $1 trillion in debt that's owed. That's not been recovered. The average kid who graduates in Ohio owes $37,000 if they don't graduate. You see what I'm saying? What I'm going to start putting out there, and what I'm really trying to move on, is the fact that you can become a carpenter, you can be an apprentice, you can be a hairdresser, you can be whatever you want that offers an apprenticeship. And apprenticeships now aren't just building houses and stuff like that. You have pharmacy techs, you have cake decorating, you have all these things that will pay you while you take the class. Once you take the class, it pays you double. You got retirement coming out. You've got, I mean, there's so many ways. There's so many ways to not graduate with debt.
I think she's trying to coach you.
Yeah, she's like, my coach is here with my hands.
She's like, put your hands down.
I'm not allowed to use my hands.
Well, but I remember when we were in high school, where I grew up, we had what was called the Greene County Career Center.
Oh, yeah.
And some of the guys that I went to high school with went there, and they learned hands-on technical skills
Oh, yeah.
that they could go right into the workforce right out of high school. But I don't really see that.
Well, you
nowadays.
don't see it because a lot of people aren't. You're not listening for it. I hear it. I see it and hear it every day. I talk to union presidents. I'm working with NECA, which is the National Electrical Contractors Association. Okay, I'm working with NTMA, which is the National Tool and Machinists Association, because they're putting the word back out there that these things are available. Kids don't go to school and go to see their guidance counselor and listen about stories about being a bricklayer in 12-degree weather and making $35 an hour. They don't hear those stories. They want you to go to college and be a professor, be a doctor, be a whatever. But
I think that's what's been so programmed into our kids. Because I know
Exactly.
when we were growing up, it was you have to go to get a good job, you had to go to college. But by the time we graduated from college, it was like, well, now you need your master's or your PhD to actually get a good job. I mean, my brothers and sisters got out. My one sister's 12 years older than me.
yeah,
So, when she got out, she was in prime time coming out of college, the field's wide open, find great jobs. But by the time it rolled around for us to go, it was kind of more like, well, now you need your master's, or you need to go on and get more education, or you need to, really zone in on something more in business. It was always business. Business.
Bazinga.
Bazinga.
So I'll give two examples. Coincidentally, they're both my cousins, coincidentally from the same family, okay? So my one cousin, we'll go with the letter K to keep him anonymous. I don't know if he wants me to share his stuff. But he runs a very successful commercial concrete company up in Cleveland. He went to college. Wasn't necessarily for him. I don't know all the particulars. I don't know the whole story. But I know he started working, and he got good, and then he took over the company, and he started his own, and now he's got a boat that's bigger than my house, okay?
Yeah.
That's cousin one. The same family, cousin two, all right? So my aunt was a very well-known, reputable, and high-level Tupperware salesman, okay? And she ran a very large Pittsburgh conglomerate Tupperware company, all right?
that's why she was successful.
and there it is. All right. Point being, he started working for her. Again, he went to college. I don't know the whole story. But had started working for her. Started having some early success. Started selling. Then started selling some more. Then became an executive sales director. Then became a regional sales director. Then became the Southeast Regional Vice President. And just last week, he was named the entire Vice President of Sales for all of North America for Tupperware. There's applause for that. All right. So I know that one's public. So Doug, to my cousin Doug, great job. You're being mentioned on 3-3 to go, even though you're a Pittsburgh guy. Point being, those are two prime examples, right? And they're right within my family. And so, it's very strange because we grew up in this mindset.
You have to go to college.
You got two options. You either go join the military,
Yep.
or you go to college. Okay, it wasn't like, and like I told you, we talked off air or on air. I'm not sure, but about it's on air about having the ability. You could come see mom. Come see mom. Having that ability to go and get that factory job right out of high school. Okay,
Yeah.
and you just can't do that anymore. Not right now without having at least two incomes to support the family. So.
Well, I'll tell you, it all depends on how it's being set up. I'm working with schools now where, back in my day, we had the OWE program. You knew who those guys were. They had on work boots, jeans, and flannel shirts. It was the occupational work program. They went to school from 8 to 12, and then they worked in the afternoon, and that's what kept them in school. I've been contacted by 6 schools out of 16 in Summit County who want me to set up some kind of program for this type of kids because, one, by the time they're juniors and seniors, they're probably only 3 or 4 credits away from graduation anyhow. 2, they don't want 3 study halls. They don't want them to have 3 study halls because then they're sitting around school getting in trouble. I know I would. So we've talked about that. I also have the one program I'm talking about helping develop. We're going to do a pre-apprenticeship where the kids get $11 and probably about $11.15 an hour to learn the electrical field while they're at the vocational aspect of this school. Once they graduate, then they're fully recommended for a full apprenticeship, which puts them into a 3-year program at $17 an hour. $3 an hour goes to retirement, full benefits for 3 years, and they're a journeyman. Another year after that, they can become an electrical contractor, and then it's however far you want to take it.
Yep. All right. So that was the next question I had. So there's that. Okay. So of the current trends right now, what are the hottest jobs that are out there right now?
Hottest jobs right now are, anything to do with IT. IT's rumored to be going to hit this area hard. So everybody, wants IT people. I work with a guy who has to drive at boot camps and stuff like that, and he was telling me, which I was very surprised. I was under the impression that everybody who works in the IT field has to go to college. So that's what, I always tell people. Well, he told me, give me an 18-year-old that stays in his basement and plays games all day, and I'll take him and make him a coder. Because I guess coding is, that's your language, not mine.
Yeah.
But coding is big out there now. So the IT field is going to be big. Construction field, just like I was saying, any one of the apprenticeships are coming back hard. Even Trump saw that it's a good thing, and he signed off on a chunk of money. He hasn't allocated it yet, but he signed off on a chunk of money. I don't know if it'll ever happen. He could be trying to build his own workforce.
We are a political free zone.
Okay.
We
try to be.
Give me some! All right.
And then anything to do with the medical field. One of the biggest trends going into 2024 is not going to be hospitals, but it's going to be home care. Our parents are getting older. People aren't going to put them into the nursing homes and the assisted living homes. They're going to want them taken care of at home. Right now, some of these little proprietary colleges try to push the STNA certification to try to get people into the field. But really anything to do with home health care or home nursing is going to be huge. It's going to be huge.
Well, there was a huge push for that, 2 years ago, I think, in regards to nursing.
And one of the things that we did talk about, we got a comment here from the audience. Glenn's just joining us. Glenn, we've talked about that earlier in the show. We definitely don't have enough people coming up through the trades right now. Employers can't find enough help. My dad even mentioned that. He said, hey, talk about this tonight, that they have a shortage of blah, 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 blah. Okay. So as we move toward the future and toward those trends, one thing we had talked about at the Connexus event is the fact that you're looking at, even with college programs now, not necessarily going for a full 4-year degree. You can get the 2-year associate's degree where you get some sort of technical training, and then you can actually train to become an engineer while you're in the process of working whatever job field that you're working in. Yeah. So that's a huge push as well, is not focusing on that 4-year degree, but getting a 2-year degree and then getting into the workforce.
Well, and all the apprenticeships that I'm working with, I'll use the JATC down on Main Street, the electrical apprenticeship. As you're taking the classes for the electrical apprenticeship to become a journeyman, you're also taking classes to be able to get an associate's degree. So you will graduate from there as a journeyman and with an associate's degree. So that's what also parlay you into becoming an electrical contractor or an electrical engineer, whatever you want to be. But probably 90% of the apprenticeships that I'm talking about carry an associate's degree with it, because Stark State is picking up on them hard. Tri-C up in Cleveland, they have 5,500 kids in apprenticeships right now. And then, you're looking down here with Akron U and everybody else trying to push it. Stark State's starting actually a CDLA program, truck drivers. If you know any truck drivers out there that are out of work, give me a call. Every day I get, as far away as Van Nuys, California, people screaming for truck drivers, semi-truck drivers, CDLAs. Huh. U.S. Foods up in Twinsburg right now will take 4 of them tomorrow if we got them.
And I've been told that we're about to experience the largest shortage of truck drivers ever. Yeah. For 2 reasons. One, people are shipping a lot more stuff. People are doing a lot more online shopping now. Amazon's taken over the world, $1 bill at a time. And so it's putting a huge demand on the shipping industry, number one. Number two, that whole workforce is nearing retirement, a good portion of them. Yep. And then so there's this race right now to get to autonomous trucking with the big Tesla machines that are out there. Yeah. But you got to make it where it's going to be safe and all that, and we're still probably 5 to 10 years away from that. So there's going to be this gap. So expect your shipping times to start to lengthen. All right, so there's a topic I wanted to throw in that I hadn't included initially, and that is how do we help folks with strikes, okay? And when I'm talking about strikes, I'm talking about guys and gals that, whether it was their fault, whether it was just bad circumstances or life circumstances or whatever, they're the folks that have gotten – someone cutting their lawn? Oh. That's part of the pod now. Folks that have gotten
it's Josh Gordon.
Yeah, it might be. Oh, wow.
Bazinga.
It's Josh. He came after Josh. Oh, man. All right, so you got folks out there that got felonies. You got folks out there that have DUIs. You got folks out there that may or may not have drug or alcohol dependency issues and those kind of things. Okay, how do we help those folks? How do we get them jobs? And then after we do so, how do we keep them employed? What are your thoughts on that?
I'll tell you what, I've just now begun to work with, we call them re-entering citizens, people who are coming back into the community. I've gotten clearance through the Ohio Department of Rehab and Corrections and through working with some parole officers through the Bureau of Prisons in the federal level to start working with placement of these re-entering citizens. Actually, I would say probably 75% of the companies that I work with, and I work with a ton of them, are dropping their felony, non-felony hiring rules or whatever they have. They'll take felony 3s, 4s, and 5s. Not very many people are going to take 1s and 2s. Sex offenders are not, they're non-touchable. But the people that are in our community corrections areas like Orienta House and stuff like that, I've met with Bernie Roachford, these people are placed. Plus they're coming out clean. They're passing drug tests. I'm even working with a lot of agencies that are dropping their drug tests, or a lot of businesses that are dropping their drug tests. They just want them sober during those 8 hours. So there's a lot of businesses who are opening their eyes. This is a true, this is an actual form of workforce that's going to be available. You know, we talked about CDLAs. Working with the Department of Rehab and Corrections, in the next 6 months, there's about 100 CDLAs that are going to be paroled. Now, they don't want to do long-distance trucking because they've just been away from their families for a long time. So they'll do local stuff. So I'm talking to my companies right now saying, hey, if I can get these people as a workforce, will you hire them? And a lot of them are saying they're hiring. There's a lot of re-entering citizen groups in the 330 that are very vocal about getting these people jobs. One of the things I found, and I have an example that happened with me. A young man was got busted with some dope going back and forth to Michigan, was in a Detroit prison up there outside of Detroit, came down here, was working for a landscaper, was making $11 an hour. The landscaper was taking $3 off the top because gave the guy a job, so he probably thought he could, you know, take some of his money too. So he was getting ripped off. So he came to me, and we got him into a site where he was welding, and he had every welding certification coming out of prison that you can get in prison, and he's working at a welding site, and he's making about $18 an hour. If you give a guy coming back from prison a $17 to an $18 an hour job, they probably won't go back to prison.
Yeah, and that's always been the biggest rub that that I've been exposed to in terms of talking to some of these folks, right? And that is, you know, when they do get out, some of the jobs that are only available are like minimum wage jobs, and they're usually in a position where they're 30, 40, 50 years old or whatever, and they're trying to support families and whatnot, and then you limit their ability to work, and what do? They end up recidivizing and ended up back in the system, right?
I'll tell you, not to cut you off, but
Oh, she does it all the time.
Gary Moore just retired from the Ohio Department of Rehab and Corrections. What he's done in the prison system in the last 15 years, every prison that's out there, and I invite you to go with me when I go to one of these, every prison that's out there, you can sit down with the guys that are coming out 90 days before they come out, interview them. I can take companies into the prisons, interview these people, give them that bridge before they come out, which will be be another stressor off their back. Parole officer can hook up with them. Maybe they come out not even on paper, but we can go into the prisons now. Every prison has 5 to 9 bona fide apprenticeships. We got guys coming out with 8,000 hours. The CDL drivers who work for the Department of Rehab and Corrections leave their prison in the morning, drive from prison to prison delivering stuff, Ohio prison industry materials, and then come back to prison at night. I mean, it's just like a job to them. You know, so these guys are ready to go, and it's just going to take people to be able to accept 1 or 2 of them. But there's a lot of people out there that know that this is a viable workforce, and they're going to start tapping into them.
Sure. It's interesting, right? All right, so next question was, what are some non-traditional options, and what does non-traditional workforce look like?
Well, and again, you're talking about the prison population coming out. We have a huge refugee population up on North Hill and all over Akron that are coming to this country with phenomenal skills that they did in their home countries. So I work with the International Institute, and I work with Asian Services to try to find out who those people are and where they can go to work. I've got companies that want to set up apprenticeships for the refugee people. We're talking about...
My dad said there's a big Bhutanese community
big Bhutanese
up in North Hill area?
Yeah,
okay.
North Hill. There's a couple new ones coming in, but the International Institute is actually moving from the site where they're at now to another site, but they're huge in helping these people relocate and getting them, settled when they come to America, and they're great people. We have some working at the Scope program right now out on Talmadge Road, and they work the minute they get there to the minute they're done. They work. I mean, they're just a very good workforce. I've actually got a few companies that have hired them in, and we'll actually train them and work with them.
Yeah, we had a group, like I told you, I used to run floor care divisions, and we had a group of refugees. It wasn't Afghanistan. I think it was Pakistan or Uzbekistan. I think it was Uzbekistan. One of those stands over there that was
Nice.
that was along that side of the the whole side of Asia over there. And the point is,
Cleveland fans.
yeah, they were.
Wow, you just took a hit.
Wow. They were one of those.
Cool story, bro.
They were all Muslim. Okay. So we had to adjust our entire workday based on that. Because there were certain times of the day where they had to pray, right? Yeah. So we'd literally be out at houses doing big window jobs or pressure washing or whatever, and the job would just shut down for a half hour, an hour, or whatever was required or necessary. So, and when you're dealing with refugee populations and when you're dealing with other cultures, you have to be understanding of all the things that are going to come with that, right? Yeah. So, and that's why some folks have a tendency to be hesitant to hire folks like that because they don't want to necessarily deal with all that. They, just yesterday, I'm watching out my window in Barberton, okay? It's 3 o'clock. They're putting in the brand new parking lots that we've been waiting 5 years for now. Okay, so the big parking lot's going in on Tusk behind Alexander Commons, and there they are. They're laying the asphalt. They're doing all their thing. And at 3 o'clock, I look out the window, and there's 18 guys, and they're all just standing there. They're all not moving, and I'm like, it must be break time. I mean, it was so bizarre because it's union work, so it's built in. This must be break. And literally, they all just stopped. It was like no matter where they were in the parking lot, it was like they froze, okay? It was like bizarre, right? They weren't going to use the restroom or grab a drink or whatever. But these are all things that are all part of this whole equation, right? Yeah. When you're talking about union, when you're talking about different cultures, when you're talking about refugees, when you're talking about, right to work states and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. Go ahead. I'll open that can of worms. Go.
Well, I'm just not a right to work fan. I just don't... I'm a union guy. I've been a union guy my whole life. I was a steel worker. I was a teamster. I was a AFSCME worker when I worked for the prison system and stuff like that. So I've always been a union supporter. I support the unions now, and I think that my brother-in-law's a big union guy. My father-in-law was a union man. It's his white building right across Hardesty Park. He was an icon in this area. I'm just not a supporter of right to work states, and I don't see it being successful in the states where it's at.
Okay.
I just don't see it.
Where are you with? You had mentioned you wanted me to ask or discuss previous programs. Where are we? What are some previous programs that have worked in the past that you would like to bring back?
Well, like I said, I mentioned a couple of them earlier, the OWE and the OWA, occupational work experience. I think every kid who's in high school should have to either have a volunteer experience or an occupational work experience. They may not know they want to work until they take 5 weekends and go work somewhere. And say, hey, maybe this might be better for me. Or I'd like to see a program. They used to have a program where most everybody was evaluated for the vocational school. I think vocational schools now have gotten such a bad rap. They used to be for the burnouts or for people who couldn't make it in school. I'm telling everybody, even if you're going to college, even if your daughter wants to go to college, she should go to a vocational school her last 2 years, get a trade, find a skill, and then if she decides she doesn't want to go to college, she's got that skill. If she does go to college, if it's cosmetology, she can cut hair all through college. She can create her own financial base while she's going through college. And I think those are programs that we used to have. We used to be mandated to volunteer. You had a question on my thing. What do we do with the older workforce? My God.
That's my next question right now.
Yeah, there was a time when we had to respect our elders. Remember when we had to respect our elders? They weren't an old workforce. They were our leaders. When I went into the steel mill with my father, I played basketball overseas. When I got off the plane, I got in the back of the car, and I said, man, that was a long flight. He goes, you're going to work in the morning. What do you mean I'm going to work in the morning? I just flew in from Amsterdam. I need about a year to take off from Amsterdam. That's what I said. I said, and I went to work in the steel mill the next day. And what they do, they hooked me up with the oldest crane operator who was there. He couldn't climb the ladder anymore, but he worked. But he taught me everything there was about overhead cranes and dumping steel. And that's what we're losing now. We don't have the older people as resources, because I'm personally, and this is just me, I don't think our younger people respect their elders like they should. And my elder is not Michael Jordan or LeBron James. You know, I love them both, but they're not my elder. Because I wear their shoes, they're not my elder. My elder was her father, my wife Lisa's father, who passed at 91 years old. And he, up until the day he passed, he could tell you stories about how unions and workforce was formed in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. Am I right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, and these are the stories that we need. To build a workforce, we need the truth. We need the old guys to tell us the truth. You know.
Well, and it goes back to the story I told about my dad, right? And that's what I'm talking about is he reaches a point. You reach a point where you can't do those things physically anymore. Okay, so then you find something else to do, right? And you could be the guy that pulls the carts around at the golf course. You could be the guy that's doing the valet at the city hospital. You could be one of the, my grandma Rosa. She's
a Walmart greeter.
She's technically not my grandma, okay, but she'd be my aunt's, my uncle's mom,
yes.
right?
Yes.
And she's one of the happy-go-lucky Walmart greeters. You know, she's got the cart, she's waiting for you there. Hey, you know. But the point is, that's what I see happening, right? You see a lot of older folks. I mean, I went to Arby's last weekend, and there's I don't know, he had to be in his 70s. And he's there cleaning the place. You know, he's walking around with a sweeper and all that. So in other words, there's all these jobs that are out there that are now being filled by older folks, and most of them, I would say, most of them are jobs that could be being filled by kids.
Yeah.
And the kids are playing Fortnite.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Well, in that generation too, like you said it about your dad. You're either working or you're not doing anything. I mean, my wife will tell you, I work 20 hours a day, because if not, I'm just not a good person to be around. I mean, I don't mistreat her or anything like that. Again, I'm not a criminal.
hold on here.
Hey, how you doing?
But if I'm not working, I have to be doing something. She'll always say, "Sit down and relax." I was never taught to relax. When I was young, you were either working or you were getting in trouble.
Sure.
And that's, same with I have two boys, and everybody said when they were growing up I was the worst parent that was in the neighborhood. But my boys were always busy. I believed if I kept them on a basketball court, I'd keep them on a juvenile court. If I kept them working, they would be something one day. And all four of our kids are very successful today.
Well, and I mean, let's go over how did we start, right? So I think you're allowed to get a work permit at 14. Is it 14?
15 now.
15 now?
15 now.
Back then, I think it was 14.
It was probably, yeah.
I remember I started caddying at Portage Country Club. That was my first job, and the bags were bigger than I was, but I would carry two anyway, and we'd make, I think it was, $40 a loop or something like that?
Wow.
So, and that was in that and Fairlawn Country Club, and I did Firestone too. And then from there, my first job was Bisson's. Remember Bisson's grocery store out in Fairlawn. And then from there, I went to AAA, because it was, if you were a Hoban soccer player, you went and worked at road service. And then I became the head road service dispatcher for my college years and did the overnight shifts. And then I worked as a domestic travel agent for AAA. So it was always, you do this, boom, 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 boom. Yeah. And then finally you go to college, and then you get your job, right? So how'd you start? What'd you do?
Well, I was 6 feet tall in sixth grade. When I grew up, in the 60s and the early 70s, if you looked like a man, which I guess I did, you had to act like a man. So I started shoveling machine chips in a machine shop.
Okay.
4 hours a day after school. It was about 3 miles from my house. I remember riding my bike. Everybody else was going and doing this and that. But it also helped contribute to the house to pay for the, and you're talking about 1971. I think minimum wage then was about 88 cents or 90 cents an hour. So I was getting paid cash. So I'd make about $10 a day, and I'd bring it home and put it in the kitty. But then and then I had a paper out, 200 record courier papers, and
I did that too. I forgot.
I think everybody did. But I just continued to work and continued to work. I worked all through college. If I could get a second job right now, I probably would. I mean, I've got a second job with what I'm doing. But, I mean, that's just, if I'm not working, it's actually almost like a depressive type thing. I have to be working, because it was pushed in me so hard that's what men do.
I think we're past the statute of limitations. That's when I learned how to drive. Okay, my dad had an old CJ7, one of those old Jeeps, and I learned how to drive with my paper route. So we would stack them all up in the Jeep, And it was what 2, 3, or 4 in the morning or whatever, and I'm driving on Orlando Avenue. He was with me, but I'm going, just and then going the wrong way and everything. So, my point in telling that story and saying that was generationally. I don't know because I would assume that we had passed that trait or that thought process on to our kids, just in the way that we work, the way that we behave, the way that we talk. Okay. It doesn't go to every kid the same way. And I just want to thump my head against the wall. Like the older middle wanted to work right away. She's already teaching, doing dance instruction and getting.
Do not throw the oldest one under the
Hold
bus.
on.
You
So the oldest one,
give
right?
All the glory
so,
to the
but
middle.
the point is, she wanted to work right away. I want to teach kids how to dance. I want to help. I want to help around the studio. I want to help
But
clean
that's
up.
simple. It's in the studio. It's while she's
Right.
there.
So the oldest one turned 16, and I'm like, yay, because like you said, it was 15, I guess. But the point is, she didn't. She was busy with theater and all that stuff. So I took an Acme application on her 16th birthday, and I put it in one of her presents. Here you go. I'm not working at Acme. I'm like, but why? I'm not working at Acme. I'm not working there. All the people from Firestone, I'm not working at Acme. I'm not working at Acme. But why? What's your reason? I'm just not going to work at Acme. Okay. So I'm like, da-da-da. A month goes by, 2 months go by. I'm like, you have one bill in life. I got this cell phone for you. That's your bill. You got to pay for the cell phone. That's it. $20, $30, whatever the line is, right? You got one bill. That's your whole responsibility to me. Get a job, get a job, get a job, get a job, get a job. What was it? June? It was June.
It was the summer because she had also.
It was June.
She had also applied at the library, but they were.
She
only
applied at the
hiring,
library.
like,
She wanted to
one
work at the
person.
library, but they wouldn't hire her because they wanted an older person.
No,
okay?
they were only hiring one person,
Yeah.
and they were waiting for the one
So
person to
she
leave.
finally gets. She finally gets. Oh, where's that? She finally gets an application put in, and then gets an interview like right away, and gets offered a job the next day. Okay. Goes to work, does her first week. They all love her. She loves it. She starts getting money. And it's like this epiphany. It's like, well, why didn't I do it? And the way we run it is, and I'm trying to teach her the financial aspect of it too. So I set up 2 accounts for her. So she's got her savings account, which she's always had. But then we open up her, I think that's when I opened up my first checking account, was like 16 years old, right? Yeah. So we open a checking account. So we're like, it's not an allowance, but it's her allocated spending money. So the goal is she makes, I don't know, $50 to $100 a week or whatever. She gets paid automatically, deposit on a Friday, and then I'll take $50 or whatever it is, and I'll put it into her checking account. She now understands this is her money. I've earned this. I've made money, and now I can spend it. If I want to go spend it all on a pair of Nikes, then I can go do it. Yep. But she understands that concept now. But the thing is, it was for some reason, I don't know if it's a generational thing or if it's just kid to kid, it was such a process.
I think it's us as parents. I mean, I was raised tough, and I always swore my kids were going to work and this, that, and another, and I never pushed them to. I mean, my wife Lisa was like, both my boys are 6'9", and she's like, they could be out like moving houses if they had to and stuff like that. But they're basketball players. They came to me early. They wanted to pay for their college education by playing basketball, so they did the whole thing. So I thought, well, I'll just never push them to work. I was really worried this summer. My youngest son, Angelo, had an internship at Odie in Cleveland, which is a big plumbing warehouse type thing. They service all the Lowe's and stuff like that. And I thought, oh my God, he had to be up at 4 a.m. and never worked at Bob's Burgers down here making burgers for a while, but never worked a real job. And I thought, man, what am I going to do? Every morning, 4 a.m., just like clockwork. He'd be there at 5. Like you said, got that first check, loved that money, and then hey, I think I'd get overtime. Can you explain to me what overtime is? And I'm like, yeah. And then he was into it. Now he's got his senior year of basketball left, and instead of going overseas like his brother does and play overseas and want to be a pro, he says, you know what, I think I want to work. So then I'm thinking, maybe the arguments me and Lisa used to have about making these kids work, maybe I was right. Maybe I held off long enough to where, she hates that, but maybe I held off long enough to where maybe now he likes it. He's not going to be burned out on work. That's just my way of making things sound good.
It's called justification right there.
Oh, well, but you and I argued about her going to work because her maturity, I think if she had started earlier, I think she really would have messed things up because of her maturity. I think I think when she actually started at Acme, she was able to understand the whole concept of having a job more.
Just do it!
than if we had sent her earlier. And she was very involved at school. I mean, when I was in high school, I don't think I worked during the school year, but I worked a 40-hour job during the summer.
Yeah.
Go ahead and bless them there.
Love you.
I'm gonna crawl across this table.
I don't know
and
how
take
this
you
happened
out.
where we established you having a mic that's on all the time.
You gave it to me.
All right, so right now we're getting ready to close down here. We're right on time. So go ahead and say your what are your closing thoughts to Akron, Canton area?
Well, I'll tell you what, we have to start talking about work again. If you don't think your kids can go to school, if you're, when I get a classroom of kids together and I ask them who all's going to college, everybody raises their hand. And when I ask them who all's got it paid for, about half the people keep their hands up because they think they have a way of having it paid for. Then when I ask them who has a full ride, no obligation afterwards, it usually gets down to about 1 or 2 people. We have to start talking about work again so that we can get these young people involved in a program or in an apprenticeship or a trade school or something that's going to flip their trigger to where they're going to give themselves a good life. We just can't continue to pile debt on kids and expect that degree to carry them through. It's just not going to do it.
Fantastic. All right. Well, folks, thanks for tuning in tonight. And if you're going to need resources or links in order to find work, we'll work together, and we'll have those links up for you tonight after tonight's show, okay? Next week, we got a really special Friday edition. We're coming to you live on Friday. As we head back up to Hudson.
Boo.
This time to explore behind the scenes of the Hudson Haunted House, which is the monster of all haunted houses, now celebrating their 46th season.
You're going to want to tune into this one and hear him scream like a
Tune
girl.
in live as we explore the history behind the house itself, along with he's touching me, along with monster interviews and a special sneak peek walkthrough. Folks, it's opening night next week, so make sure if you bring 3 canned food items to stuff the hearse, you get in admission for only $5 charge, okay, which I'm pretty sure they're in the $15, $20, $25 range. Who knows? Somewhere in there, right? Haunted houses are no longer cheap, okay? No. So if you bring in 3 cans to help stuff the hearse, you get in for $5 on opening night next Friday, and you get to see me walk through a haunted house, which ought to be just a treat, okay? Until then, I don't know where I'm going, but there ain't no sense of being late. Everybody, are you ready? Say goodnight, Shirley.
Good night, Shirley.
This podcast is a copyright of Moon Garden Media Limited.
Oh, just a lot of peanut butter.